welcome back to the Openly Occultic Book Club. We've been reading the definitive book of Human Design by Lynda Bunnel, authorized by Ra Uru, and it's been very interesting so far. On our last episode, we began section 2, where the discussion centered around the 9 centers of the body graph. And hopefully by now you've gotten your own body graph chart. All you got to do is Google free human design body chart or free human design body graph or what have you, and you should be able to get it really, really easily. It's just like when you're trying to get your natal chart. You just give, you just type in your date of birth, time of birth, and location of birth, and you get your free body graph chart. So hopefully you've gotten that so you can follow along better when it comes to these concepts and you can see how they apply to you. So, on our last one, we began the 9 centers and we went over 3 of them. We went over the head center, the throat center, and the root center. And now we're going to be picking back up in section 2 on the Anja center, and that's the third eye center, if you will. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you share this video, particularly with those who are very much into astrology, because as I've been saying, human design is like astrology on steroids. So it's much more information that you can learn about yourself than just the astrology. It puts it all together because human design, as he said in the book, or as was written in the book, human design is a synthesis of the Hindu Brahmin chakra system, astrology, the Zoroastrian Kabbalah tree of life, the Chinese I Ching, and quantum physics. You know, these things all come together, and he says you don't have to believe them. Just hear out the information and then start to conduct the experiment on yourself. Start to see whether or not these things are true for yourself. And then, hey, if it is, go ahead and make your own YouTube video. Let everybody know, hey, human design is great. Or if you figure out, if you do your experiment and it doesn't align with you, it doesn't resonate with you, you don't really, feel it on that level, hey, go ahead and let the people know that you are against human design. Whatever the case may be, I'm glad that we have this information here because it gives me a lot more insight into how my energy flows through my body, you know. So, as I was saying in the last video, and I showed my body graph chart, I have an open head center, an open throat center, and an open root center. And in the last episode, we learned about the root center and how if it's open, people can be subject to panic attacks. And that's because when the center is open, it doesn't mean it's broken or it doesn't work. It means that when you're around someone with a defined root center, so it's not just white and open, it's colored in and defined. When you're around somebody who has a defined root center and you don't have a defined root center, you'll kind of get a big burst of this adrenalized energy that comes from the root chakra. People who have the defined root chakra have access to this energy 24/7. It's constantly flowing in them. It's persistent, it's consistent, and they're made to be able to withstand that amount of stress coming from the adrenals, coming from this root center. But if you don't have it defined, you don't have constant access to that energy. You're not built to withstand that energy on a constant basis. So when you're around someone who has it, you get an amplified amount of that energy flowing into you. And it can be too much to handle. Therefore, you can be prone to panic attacks. That's what we read in the last episode in the root center area. And I said, wow, on my human design chart, I have an open root center. I don't have any of the gates defined or anything. It's completely open. So I was just thinking about it out loud and I was like, wow, I had a lot of panic attacks from the age of about 9 years old. I was in the fourth grade till around, 21, 22, maybe 23. And all that time, you could find me in school around other people in elementary school, junior high, in high school, college. I'm around other people. Clearly, some of these people had defined root chakras, and I would experience panic attacks. I couldn't handle all that extra energy coming from the root chakras or the root centers in these various people that were around me. I couldn't handle that. It was too much. So I would have a lot of panic attacks. And reading about this, it just really clicked for me like, wow, that is amazing. So anyway, we're going to pick back up on the Anjna Center. Thank you so much for joining me. Um, and I hope you stick around as we continue learning about the definitive book of human design, the science of differentiation. All right, the Anjana Center. And this area represents mind consciousness, conceptualizing, interpreting answers as opinions, concepts, and theories. The biological correlation. 3 biological functions are associated with the Anjana Center: the neocortex, the visual cortex, and the pituitary glands. The tiny anterior and posterior pituitary glands, located at the base of the brain, act as our body's maintenance headquarters. They send hormonal messages to the thyroid glands with instructions that keep us alive, on track, and functioning optimally. These master glands of the endocrine system are intimately connected to all parts of our body, and it's not surprising that for eons we have lived a mind dominated life. Although the pituitaries still oversee our entire system, the body's overall level of conscious awareness has evolved, and the role of the mind has shifted. Mental awareness, the mind, and decision making. Of the 9 centers in our body graph, 3 are awareness centers: the spleen, body consciousness, with its body and survival intelligence; the ajna, mind consciousness, with its mental intelligence; and the solar plexus, spirit consciousness, with its emotional intelligence and emerging spirit awareness. It is through these awareness centers that we become conscious of our experience of being alive and in relationship with others. The other 6 centers are purely mechanical, operating below our conscious level of awareness. The head and Ajna centers function together as the mind. The Ajna center is a processing hub for transforming pressure that arrives as inspiration from the head center into useful information for review, research, and communication. The Ajna is merely an interpreter. Like the head, it cannot manifest. The Ajna, flanked by the motorless head and throat centers, is the only awareness center in the body graph locked away from energy. The other 2 awareness centers do have access to motors. They can act out of their awareness. The splenic center is next to the sacral and root centers, and the solar plexus, a motor itself, is next to the root, sacral, and heart centers. Mental awareness, which was the second awareness to evolve, splenic awareness was the first, dominates the way that we perceive our world today. Our perceptions are derived from 2 major processes. One is visual and one is acoustic. The visual, associated with the development of the visual cortex, is concerned with what has been and what might be. The acoustic is associated with pure inspiration and the pressure to know now. The awareness frequency of the Ajna Center is different from that of the Splenic Center. Splenic awareness is existential, spontaneous, and in the moment. The frequency of our mental process operates over all time. A decision made mentally has a long shelf life and can be mulled over until death. This means that any decision we make based on what is coming out of our openness, those open centers on your body graph, will be lived over and over for the rest of our life. We will remain stuck in its illusory web. For example, if you make a decision from your not self mind and it doesn't work, your mind will automatically suggest that you try another option. And if that doesn't work, it will say that you should have used yet another option. None of these options are correct for you, and none of them will work ever. You have simply become trapped in a web of ineffectual suggestions and dead ends. Recognizing that the mind has no authority in your life is the only way to extricate yourself from confusion and disappointment, and from making incorrect mental decisions. The mind measures or processes information in a dualistic this or that manner, a valuable asset for simultaneously weighing two or more sides of any concept. The Anjana can look at the positives and the negatives of a decision and construct two arguments that are opposite to each other. One argument says the option is bad because, while the other says it's good because, and this is all the mind can do. However, it argues back and forth. It can neither judge nor know which is best. It simply determines how many sides of an issue there are to consider. Imagine that you have had a misunderstanding with someone and you want to straighten it out. You want to talk to the person about it and get it off your chest. You can use your mind's analytical gifts to come up with lists on both sides of the argument, but don't call the person yet. Let your strategy and authority guide you as to when you are to speak and what you are to say. Otherwise, you will replay that conversation over and over again. Did I do the right thing? What if I had done it this way or said it that way? Pain and regret, rather than resolution, are the consequences of poorly timed reactions, simply because the dualistic mind cannot let go of the other side of any issue. We cannot know our own truth from this place of mental rationalization and comparison. Our truth must come from our personal authority. Awareness is the end result of successfully dealing with fear, and each awareness center has its own forms of fear to confront. The fear experienced by the Anjna Center is expressed as mental anxiety fed by the fear of not knowing something or the fear of being misunderstood. Both fears are healthy when they drive us to better understand our ideas and communicate them clearly. When communication fails, however, the anxiety comes to the surface. How we deal with the anxiety will either lead to our mastery and awareness or to a further heightening of the anxiety. Whether our anjana is defined or undefined, we all carry these fears. They are magnified in the undefined anjana. So if you have an undefined anjana, it's white on your chart, not colored in, these fears are magnified. The value of awareness or mental intelligence does not come from being in control, but rather from our ability to share and empower others with our unique perspective at the right time and in the right place. We're here to encounter each other, to articulate our experience of being human, to enrich, educate, and store history for future generations, and to contemplate and explore life's possibilities. Each gate in the Anjana Center carries a form of mental anxiety that alerts us to the possibility that we are succumbing to external expectations which thwart our awareness and put our mental health in jeopardy. So here are the gates of the Anja Center. Now remember, human design is a synthesis of a whole bunch of different systems. One is the the Hindu Brahma chakra system, right? So it's like, when we look at these different centers on the body graph, it can bring to mind the chakras, right? The root chakra, the sacral chakra, the heart chakra, so on and so forth. But when we get to gates, which are the little numbers within each of those 9 centers, the gates are synonymous with the hexagrams of the Chinese I Ching. So when you see gates, you can also think of in your mind, you can think of hexagrams, because the gates are the same as the hexagrams in the I Ching, and there's even more information that can open up to you, more awareness, more wisdom, more knowledge, okay, about yourself. So let's go over these gates of the Anja Center now. Starting out with gate 47, oppression. This is the gate of realization, the fear of futility, making sense of the confusion, mental anxiety that life is oppressive and futile, that you cannot make sense of the confusion. That's the energy flowing through that gate if you have it on your chart. Gate 24, if you have it defined on your chart. Gate 24, the return, the gate of rationalization, fear of ignorance, knowing the answer in a pulse, mental anxiety that you'll never know the answer, that inspiration will never come, or that you won't be able to explain your knowing. Gate 4, youthful folly, the gate of formalization, the fear of chaos, formulating a logical answer, mental anxiety that you'll never find order in your life and that you'll always be in chaos, the need to find and give answers. Gate 11, peace, the gate of ideas, the fear of darkness, having new ideas to share, mental anxiety about not having a new stimulating idea to think about or learn, anxiety about sharing and manifesting your ideas. Gate 43, these are all gates that are in the Anja Center. And if you have it defined, then that would apply to you. Gate 43, breakthrough, the gate of insight, the fear of rejection, having unique perspectives, mental anxiety that your ideas are too weird and will be rejected, the need to make sense to others. And finally, gate 17, following, the gate of opinion, the fear of challenge, having opinions based on the facts, fear that your opinions will be challenged so you don't share them, the need to have the details to back up the opinion. The defined Anja Center is 47% of the population. Those with defined Anja Centers conceptualize the same way most of the time, resulting in consistent, specific, and trustworthy mental functions. Their mental preferences and predispositions are determined by their gates, channels, and they are not easily influenced by another's presence. This is for those who have a defined Anja Center on their body graph. They can conceptualize, inspire, and pressure others to think. Their minds are used for processing data, creativity, and as an outer authority for others. In these ways, they condition the mental field and people in their aura. Defined centers are always on, and those with defined Anja centers are always thinking, always processing. They may find it difficult to meditate because they can't stop or control their mental activity. On the other hand, they enjoy their mental stimulation. The Anja can be defined to either the head or the throat center. If their definition is between the ajna and throat, they can always speak their mind according to their strategy and authority. Either definition can create a headstrong tendency to make decisions from the mind, which often leads to feeling inadequate or hypocritical if one can't follow through on what was said. When defined anjanas become over reliant on their minds, they tend to waste a lot of energy obsessing about an uncompleted action or decision that is too late to do anything about. The undefined Anjana Center is 53% of the population. If the Anjana Center is undefined in a chart, the head center will also be undefined. Gate activations in either undefined center provide themes for the ways our mental activity connects us to people with whom we interact. Okay, so gate activations in either undefined center, the head or the Anjana center, provides themes for the way our mental activity connects us to people with whom we interact. Open head and Anjana centers can have an open and flexible mind. This is a sign of the mental intelligence indicative of thinkers or intellectuals like Freud or I can't. Young, Einstein, or Madame Curie. Once a person's mind is set free from conditioning, it is open to a full range of intellectual stimulation and creativity. Innate and learned wisdom about the intricate workings of the mind can come to the surface. When they do not hold on to or lay claim to concepts, ideas, or opinions as their own personal truth, or become overly identified with any one of them, these open minds are able to deeply contemplate and discover the world through their intellectual gifts. Those with undefined anjanas are able to discern which concepts have value and to recognize who is capable of providing an answer to the question or questions under consideration. They have the capacity to sift through the myriad of possibilities and gather what matters. They often pick up thoughts and ideas before someone in the group speaks them aloud. As a child, they might grow up feeling that their ideas, which seem to come from nowhere or everywhere, are irrelevant or wrong. Fear and conditioning lead them to believe that they need to be certain about their ideas in order to appear intelligent. Fearful of looking stupid, they pretend to be certain about things that don't matter. As this can become a habit over time, they may do it without even knowing it. Imagine a child with an undefined Anjna center being taught by someone with a defined Anjna center. A parent, for example, putting pressure on a child to think logically when the child is designed to think abstractly. The child feels pressure to think in one particular way, and when he or she cannot do this consistently, begins to feel inadequate. Such children will grow up feeling something is wrong with them, and through conditioning will compensate by pretending to be certain about things in order to feel accepted and acceptable. Once they realize and have accepted that their mind operates in an inconsistent way, however, and that they can really never be certain about anything, their mind becomes a playground. It reverts to its correct role as a classroom, a delightful source of entertainment, and a treasure trove of wisdom for others. Interesting. The completely open Anjna Center. Those with a completely open Anjna Center and a completely open head center can have difficulty knowing what to think or how to interpret or conceptualize what they do think, which is so important in terms of fitting in to our mind-orientated culture, right? Those who don't have any gates. With no gate activation, so it's open, it's not colored in, it's not defined, it's white, open, and it also doesn't have any defined gates. The numbers are there, but they're not, defined. With no gate activations or guiding channel through which to organize their thoughts, they have nothing fixed and reliable to depend on. This can leave them with a sense of helplessness, anxiety, and even futility about the benefits of thinking at all. If their not self takes advantage of this situation by strengthening its arguments for running their life, it will lead to the abdication of their personal authority. Those with a completely open Ajna center can derive great pleasure in contemplating a wide variety of theories, concepts, and insights without becoming attached to any of them or to any particular way of thinking about them. They learn to recognize a good thought or concept which, when stimulated by a proper invitation, may be able to move to the next level. One of their most practical contributions is helping us see through the ways the not self and not self mind seduce us away from our true path and purpose. That was a mouthful. One of their most practical contributions is helping us see through the ways that the not self and not self mind seduce us away from our true path and purpose. So here's some of the not self talk of the undefined Ajna Center. The not self mind is the spokesperson for the undefined centers and tells us what we should say or do. Noticing this talk is essential to deconditioning. Here's some examples of what the not self mental monologue could sound like with an undefined Ajna Center. I better figure this out. We have to figure this out. What should I do with my life? I've got to figure out what to do with my life. Where's my next move? I'm certain that blah, 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 blah. I have to figure out life because it feels futile. I have to know the answer. I have to put order to my life to get rid of the chaos. I have to make this new idea a reality in my life. I better not share this because people are going to think I'm weird or strange. I'm not going to share my opinion because I don't want to be challenged. I have to be ready for the challenge. What am I going to say? So that was interesting. And I like how, in all of these examples, we're reminded about how society could be so much different. And I would say better if we knew these things and arranged society in a way that could enhance or bring about a better quality of life. Like we said, here you have a parent who has a defined center, so they are, they can completely rely on their mental facilities because that energy is flowing 24/7. And then they have a child, or same thing if you're in a teacher-student relationship, or even a therapist-patient relationship. I mean, the person that doesn't have this defined Ajna center, it doesn't have access to all that, though that it doesn't mean they're broken, it just means they're different and unique, right? They're still equally wonderful. And, you have a right to life and to enjoy your life in the way that you're supposed to live and the way that's best for you. So I like this book because it's discussing this flow of energy. And, I like to know about how energy flows because then we're not fighting against the current, if you will, you know. So let's move on. We're at the Splenic Center. There's 9 centers. We've covered 4 so far. The head, the throat, the root, and the ajna. So now we're here at the Splenic Center, and this center's theme revolves around body consciousness, the full existential living, spontaneity, health and well-being, values, and the immune system. Hmm. The immune system. I like this. Now we can get into different viruses and sicknesses. We definitely have come out of a serious situation with vaccines and with COVID and all of that. Some people have stronger immune systems, some don't. I guess is what we're going to find out. We're going to find out about the immune system, so let's tune in and concentrate on what's being said so that we can take this information and use it to our advantage, right? Okay, here's the biological correlation. The splenic center is associated with our lymphatic system, the spleen, and T cells. The cells of the lymphatic system act like little ears, noses, and tongues all over the body. Ever alert, they are constantly listening, tasting, and smelling to make sure everything in our environment is healthy and in balance. If something isn't, they warn us. This is the hub of our immune system. When T cells, splenic soldiers, which make up about 1/5 of our body's cells, are called into action, they attack and destroy anything that invades the body. Their job is to protect us from disease. Children with undefined splenic centers are probably the first to come home with any illness out there, like the flu, a cold, measles, or mumps. It is their body's way of slowly building up a natural immunity to common diseases. The key to maintaining the health of these children with undefined splenic centers, is to allow them to heal completely after they're sick. Give them a few more days off from school to regain their full vigor. Teach them how to take care of themselves in order to strengthen their potential well being. As adults, they will be sensitive to their health and to how they feel, learning about what food and health remedies work for them and what to avoid. Typically, they need gentler health remedies than those with a defined splenic center. Those with a defined splenic center tend to take their health for granted and benefit from regular checkups to make sure their hard working spleen isn't concealing potential problems. When they do succumb to illness, they usually require a lengthy recuperation time. It is imperative that they heal completely before returning to a full active schedule. So, right there, we just learned a lot. I hope you got your bodygraph charts and pull one for your children, your mom and dad, your sisters and brothers, your close friends. Let's just start to learn about it. Well, not only ourselves, but each other. And when the time or opportunity presents itself, following your strategy and authority, um, you can go ahead and drop a truth bomb on them, a little knowledge. Drop it on them. Hey, this is what you can do to have a better quality of life. You know, you have an undefined spleen center, so you need to do this and do that. You know, this will help you out, and you won't succumb or fall victim. Know your body. Learn your body. Okay? And we're all unique. That doesn't mean you're bad or good, you're strong or weak. It means you are unique, uniquely made, and you need to be aware of how you are made and what energy you are dealing with, right? Okay. Awareness as fear for our survival. This amazing center, this splenic center, with its primal fears for our survival and well-being, is also a source of our lightheartedness and laughter, our spontaneity and daring. Its existential awareness, its awareness in the now moment, keeps us moving safely forward, while deep inside it steadily cleanses built up toxins and the adverse effects of negative vibrations and memories from our system. In review, of the 9 centers in the bodygraph, only 3 are described as awareness centers: the splenic, the Ajna, and the solar plexus. Awareness is what allows us to be conscious of our experience of life. The other 6 centers function on a purely mechanical basis, meaning it's like your heartbeat, it's like you're breathing. You're not consciously aware as much, it does it automatically, right? Awareness has evolved over millions of years, and each of the 3 awareness centers represents a different phase in that evolutionary process. The splenic center is the oldest. Its survival driven primary awareness connects us with all life forms: plants, reptiles, birds, insects, and our closest relatives, mammals. See designs below. As the oldest awareness center and the center most common to all life, its essential function has always been to keep the form alive, literally keeping it from becoming someone's or something's lunch. The work of this center is instantaneous, instinctual alertness for anything that threatens our well being, including negative emotional vibrations. Wow. Fear is its mode of operating, as fear for survival generates alertness. Over time, these primal fears evolved into a form of intelligence, a type of body awareness or body consciousness focused on what is needed to survive, adapt, and thrive in the mundane world. This intelligence remains alert and on guard within us to this day. Of the three awareness centers, the Ajna, which is unique to human beings, is twice as strong as the splenic and the solar plexus, which is not yet fully evolved as an awareness center, and is twice as strong as the Ajna. So the Ajna is twice as strong as the splenic and the solar plexus. I'm sorry. The Ajna is twice as strong as the splenic center, and the solar plexus is twice as strong as the Ajna. The fact that the splenic center, with its responsibility for life and death, is the weakest of the three indicates how fragile life is. The not self voices of both the Ajna and the solar plexus centers can easily override the quiet little alerts coming from our splenic awareness. Wow, so check this out. The design of plants. Let me zoom in a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Plants have 8 centers. Which would be the throat, the spleen, and the solar plexus, the heart, the G center, the sacral, and the root. Maybe, I don't know. I'm going by the designs on human bodygraph charts. Um, this is the design of insects. They have 8 centers. Hmm, this is amazing, right? Everything has an aura and everything has a center. Design of mammals. They have 8 centers as well. So, okay, and we have design of fish, birds, and reptiles. And they have 8 centers. Okay, interesting. So, all of them have 8 centers. Plants, insects, mammals, and fish, birds, and reptiles all have 8 centers. As humans, we have 9 centers according to Ra Uru Hu, the founder of the Human Design System. And it says, for a complete listing of the designs of forms, please see section 11. Wow. Okay. All awareness begins with fear, and each of these 3 awareness centers has its own fear frequency. Each gate in the spleen represents a primary fear for survival. The splenic system's awareness is an aspect of our intelligence that is created each time we face and survive a fear-filled challenge to our existence, our confidence, and our well-being. So here's the gates of the splenic center. Gate 48, the well, the gate of death, fear of inadequacy, awareness of a potential solution or not, fear that you don't have enough depth or are seeking depth to resolve the fear. Gate 57, the gentle, the gate of intuitive clarity, fear of the future. Awareness to hear truth in the now or not, fear of what the future will bring, so you hold back. Gate 44, coming to meet, the gate of alertness, fear of the past. Awareness through smell for the talents and potential of others or not. Fear that the past baggage will catch up to you. Gate 50, the cauldron, the gate of values, the fear of responsibility. Awareness to be responsible for the preservation of others or not. Fear of taking on responsibility or taking on too much responsibility due to fear. Gate 32, duration, the gate of continuity, the fear of failure. Awareness of what can be transformed or not. Fear of failure holds you back from doing what you want to do. Gate 28, preponderance of the great, the gate of the game player, the fear of death or purpose. Awareness to struggle for purpose or not taking risks out of fear, fear that life has no purpose unless you take risks. And last but not least, Gate 18, work on what has become spoilt, the gate of correction, fear of authority. Awareness of the pattern that needs to be corrected or not. Fear of being judged by others and or too much self-judgment. So these are the gates in the splenic center. If you have it defined, then that is the gate or gates that apply for you. Right? Let's start with ourselves, and then we can spread out and start dealing with our inner circle and on and so forth, so on and so forth. So yeah, we're learning ourselves, which is love. You must love yourself to be learning yourself. Congratulations, we're here. The defined splenic center is 55% of the population. The splenic center is responsible for our surviving and thriving with a sense of well-being in the world. It manages our instinct, intuition, and taste, which are processes for discerning what is or isn't healthy for our survival. Its nonverbal recognition operates in the present moment, in the now. This vital, spontaneous information is what we call intuition, gut instinct, or a hunch. It allows us to make trustworthy, spontaneous judgments and decisions. Moment to moment awareness, however, means that the spleen never repeats its first alarm. If we do not pay close attention to those little alerts immediately, we will miss their warning, which is always rooted in what is needed for survival right now. Those with a defined spleen center as their authority must listen to their intuition, do what it tells them to do, and not let their not self or anyone else's mind distract them from following their own instincts, which are trustworthy and produce reliable results. They then remain alert and protected, feel good, and can enjoy the benefits of a strong immune system. They can project a state of well being that is envied by those with undefined splenic centers who do not consistently feel good. Living fully in the present moment with a carefree but prudent abandon is the byproduct of a deep attunement with existence. It requires an ever growing dependence on their vehicle's awareness, their body's intelligence to guide them and protect them throughout their life, second by second by second. So, we're learning how to be more consciously aware of our body and our energy. Yes. The mind is not an authority. Even though it's loud, reasoned thinking can easily overwhelm the spleen's subtle messaging system. When a person receives a sudden warning, there is no time and no way to figure out why the splenic center sent the message. Existential awareness cannot be rationalized. It must simply be trusted, right? Don't go with this guy. He's weird. Something's off. Hey, it's women too. Something's off about this chick. I can't quite put my finger on it, but my spidey senses are going off. Let me move around. And you can do it nicely. Hey, I got something to do. I gotta go. I gotta go. And keep it moving. Your splenic center is letting you know this is dangerous. Something's off, and you should listen to it. And you can only listen to it if you learn to tell your mind to shut up, and it takes practice, and learn to listen to yourself. Okay, that's great. This is wonderful. Understanding the fuller perspective of an experience can only happen by looking back after the fact. And what is not correct for a person one moment may be correct 30 minutes or a day later. For the spleen, the present moment is all that matters, all it is aware of. That's funny. Um, Going back to my bodygraph chart, I have a defined spleen center and a few, defined gates in my spleen center. And so my intuition is pretty on point. I've been learning over decades how to listen to it even more. I fully trust it. It guides me. I have no problems. I could only get better with that. So I'm in a good space. When I was in junior high, my mom met a lady, and the lady had a son. And my mom said to me at some point later on, weeks later or months, days, I don't know. But at some point she said, this guy seems like a pretty good guy. You should hang out with him. You should, hang out. Date him. I don't know I can't remember the words she used. I was young. So I was probably 14. But anyway, she said, you should hang out with him. And my intuition, I was like, I don't know. I'm cool. Like a few weeks or months later, this guy went to jail because he beat his mom horribly. He beat his own mother horribly. I think she went to the hospital, definitely. And I said, Mom, you see, I told you I told you. I told you. So my spidey senses was on point back then. And yours are too. If you don't know, just take your time, practice, learn to listen, learn to believe it, okay? Learn to believe your spidey senses. Believe that intuition in you that's saying, no, danger, no, you don't want to go that way. No, you don't want to eat that. No, you don't want to be with that around that person. No, you don't like the vibes. You walk into a room and the vibes is off. Shoot, I could be anywhere but here. I got a lot I could be doing, but be up in a place with a strange vibe. Nope. Go ahead and listen to your vibrations, listen to your intuition. Hey, we're growing. We're changing into who we are always meant to be. This is great. I wish you luck on your journey. The mind is not an authority, right? We already read that. Okay, so what's not correct for a person one moment may be correct 30 minutes or a day later. For the spleen, the present moment is all that matters, all it is aware of, right? It's only going to tell you once. I'm glad I listened because I could have been beat up. Shoot, he beat up his mom. That's so sad. I hope she's okay. After years of letting the mind override the intuitive knowing and awareness of the splenic center, people can end up completely out of touch with their instincts, put their life at risk, and suffer unnecessary ill health and unhappiness. They think they dare not follow their body's intuitive intelligence, yet it can be disastrous for them not to, right? So, shoot. Enough said. You already know. You've heard stories, you know. I don't think there's any children here. But if so, welcome, children, welcome. But we're adults. We know what it is to not listen to your spidey senses, and you end up in all kind of strange situations that are bad for your health. You should have listened, and you know it. So now we know, and now if we know better, we can do better. Undefined splenic centers are 45% of the population. 7 primal fears reside in the splenic center. And when the center is undefined, these fears are easily magnified. Those with undefined spleens need to face each of their fears one by one in order to become fearless in a healthy way. This is how they develop awareness and honor and learn from their fear rather than suppress it or pretend it's not there. Confronting and handling the fear makes them stronger and less frightened each time the fear returns. The result is a sense of well being. If they're unable to do this, however, the conditioned not self may become overwhelmed by the fears. Those who are born with an undefined splenic center enter the world with a fundamental fear that they're not equipped to survive here on earth. They're also open and sensitive to the lack of well being in the world and interpret this personally. When people in their environment with defined spleens condition them, they feel better and safer. They grow up unconsciously seeking and clinging to people with defined spleens for the security and sense of well being it seems to provide, regardless of what else comes with it. They typically end up holding on to what is not good for them, and this can lead to all sorts of unhealthy dependencies, especially in familial relationships, such as children with an undefined spleen who have a spleenically defined parent. Even if the parent is abusive, these children will do everything they can to hold on to the parent simply to access the conditioning feel good frequency of the defined splenic center. They'll be terrified if sent to their room alone, and often feel rejected, abandoned, and fearful that they cannot survive. This causes them to cling to the security of the parent even more, eventually creating an unhealthy dependency. Because of this early conditioning, the not self minds of these children will convince them to hold on to what is not good for them as they mature. At the adult level, those with an undefined spleen who are in a relationship with a defined spleen that is no longer healthy for them will say things like, "It'll be better tomorrow," or "Maybe the therapy will work," or "What about the children?" This is the dilemma for many battered women who go back to abusive spouses. The deep fears of survival, the attraction to be with a defined spleen, can blind them to who is good for them and who isn't, or to when to hold on to a relationship and when to let go. Mm. When an undefined spleen is temporarily defined by a defined spleen or passing transit connection, it can experience a deceptive sense of security, right? So you don't have a defined spleen, but you're around someone who has one, or maybe the transit for the day activates spleen energies, sends out splenic energies. That person with the undefined spleen can experience a deceptive sense of security. The mantra for someone with an undefined splenic center is never make a spontaneous decision. Being spontaneous, except in potentially harmful or threatening situations, poses a risk to the undefined spleen because it cannot trust the ever changing impulse of the moment. The not self of the undefined spleen is attracted to spontaneity in an effort to feel good and make the fear disappear, but it usually comes with a high price. When undefined spleens are in the aura of a defined spleen, they are naturally under pressure to be spontaneous. In most cases, they are unaware that this is happening. But what they end up doing is living the life of the person pressuring them. It's not their life, however, and it may not be safe for them. If they follow their strategy and the guidance of their authority, they avoid the temptation to be impulsive. Impulsive decisions made in the moment from a conditioned, undefined splenic center may cause them to let go of beneficial things as well. Oh, I don't need that or them anymore. Once the conditioning is broken, however, they realize they made a mistake and let go of something that really was good for them. Sudden decisions made without relying on one's consistent authority can have long-term consequences. People with a healthy oriented People with a healthy orientation to their undefined spleen can discern the difference between what is their own need to attend to in terms of some aspect of their health and what is a lack of well-being coming from the environment. When they are with unhealthy or deeply unhappy people and find themselves feeling ill, they understand that they're probably absorbing the other person's ill health or unhealthy vibrations. They can sense when someone or something is not good for them. They can be tuned into their instinctual and intuitive awareness, yet know that this is not the authority for their decisions. They pay close attention to their health and nurture their body's resilience. They understand how important it is to face their fears and how to deal with the fear of survival. They develop the wisdom to know how intuition works, who has it, and who does not. Ultimately, they can become highly intuitive themselves. Their undefined spleen is never a reliable resource for making decisions. However, because it is very vulnerable to the conditioning in their environment. By entering into new relationships through their strategy and authority, they get the correct splenic conditioning in their lives. So, just because you have an undefined spleen center does not mean you're broken. It doesn't mean you can't survive out here. You can definitely learn to become highly intuitive. You just need to start paying attention more to your body and how you start to feel in different situations and around different people. That's all. And also know that you know you can't completely depend on that energy when you're around certain people because it could be coming from them, but at least just noticing that it might not be me. This might be coming from somebody here who has a spleen center defined, or it might, it's the aura, it's the vibrations, it's something bad in here for me. And you can just kind of like you can learn over time. That's the thing. So good luck in your experimentation. I wish you the best in learning how to live your best life. The wisdom that comes over time through the undefined splenic center allows many professional healers to bring great benefit to their patients. When they step into their client's aura, there is a spontaneous recognition, a sense of whether the person is healthy or ill, and what might be out of balance. Such intuitive empathy emerges as the undefined spleen learns to distinguish between what it's filtering through from others and what energies are its own. Intuitive awareness or wisdom about someone else is available to the undefined spleen only when it does not identify with what the other person is experiencing. One moment. All right, completely open splenic center. There's a healthy and natural level of fear in all of us. When children or adults with a completely open splenic center lose contact with the fears that keep them alive and healthy, they can become insecure and fearful of everything. They do not know what to be afraid of and can also become fearless to the point that they do foolish, risky, and unhealthy things. The same wisdom of the undefined spleen described above is enhanced by their complete openness to the full range of instinctual and intuitive intelligence vibrating through this center. That means if you have a open spleen center and none of the gates are defined, that's what we're talking about here. So the same wisdom of the undefined spleen described above is enhanced by their complete openness. They're just open to none of those gates are defined, so they just hey this awareness includes the way laws, values, and other entrepreneurial endeavors nurture, protect, and ensure the survival of our offspring, thus promoting the growth of a healthy society. So, there's that. Here's the not self talk of the undefined splenic center. The not self mind is the spokesperson for the undefined centers and tell us what we should say or do. Noticing this talk is essential to deconditioning. Here are some examples of what the not self mental monologue could sound like with an undefined splenic center. Let's not do that because it makes me insecure, or because I'm afraid, or I feel fearful every time I think about doing it. Let's not say that because it might upset that person. I'm afraid that I'll feel inadequate if I do that. I'm not going to do that because I might fail. I'm afraid of doing that because I'm afraid of what the outcome will be or what the future will bring. Or I'm afraid of the responsibility or the criticism. I can't do that because I might lose my connection with that person. They might leave. So, if these are the type of monologues you got coming from this voice in your mind, we're not saying you're schizo. We're saying that you're dealing with the not self because you have this open or undefined splenic center, and these are the type of thoughts that will consistently or will be coming your way almost all the time. So noticing this type of talk is essential, because once you start noticing it, then sometimes you can tell it, "Shut up! I don't want to talk about it. Leave me alone," and or drown it out with other thoughts. Learn to meditate, do some breathing exercises, kind of learn, and then just overcome them. Just be like, whatever. I don't even believe all that, and just keep it moving, doing what you're trying to do. Don't let the fear control you. We don't live by fear around here at all. So there's that. Here's the solar plexus. We have two centers left, I believe. Um, we did the head, the root. The head, the root, the spleen, the throat, and the ajna. Now we're on the solar plexus. Then we'll have, the G center and the heart. Hmm. The sacral? Did we do the sacral? Anyway, here's the solar plexus center. With this center, you're dealing with spirit consciousness, emotional and social awareness, passion and desire, abundance of spirit, feelings, moods, and sensitivity. And here's your biological correlation. The solar plexus center is associated with the lungs, kidneys, pancreas, prostate gland, and the nervous center. Its themes are feeling, emotions, and sensitivity, and its function is to allow us to gain a sense of emotional clarity and well being. When a person's emotions run unconstrained over time, the physical well being of several major organ systems is directly affected. Water retention and weight gain are common examples of the consequences of unresolved emotional stressors. The solar plexus provides the potent energy driving the cyclic nature of human experience. Its desire frequency is continually moving us towards encounters with pleasure and its opposite, pain. It is the center of revolution, poetry, romance, compassion, spirituality, and religion. We seek to prolong its highs to stay connected to spirit, and we do everything in our power to avoid its lows, our unfulfilled expectations and sense of separation. With half of humanity acting impulsively from these emotional ups and downs, and the other half avoiding dealing with emotions altogether, we find ourselves living in an emotionally distorted world. Excuse me. These distortions permeate every aspect of life on this planet. No other center in our time has a deeper impact on humanity, individually or globally, than the solar plexus center. Comprehending the mechanics and chemistry of this center can release years of painful emotional patterns, reestablish physical health, open the way for renewed pleasure with living, and engender a wholesome compassion towards ourselves and others. This is one of my centers. I have the solar plexus center defined on my chart. Emotional awareness and future spirit consciousness. Each of the three awareness centers has a unique frequency. The splenic center governs the immune system and operates in the now, spontaneously and existentially. The Anja center governs mental awareness and operates over all time. The solar plexus center, which is both a motor and an awareness center, governs emotions and operates on a biochemical oscillating wave over time. Biochemical. The solar plexus began a mutative process several thousand years ago, sometimes between the birth of Buddha and the birth of Jesus, moving us towards a new kind of awareness referred to as spirit awareness. Yeah, earlier he said that they said the solar plexus is dealing with spirituality and religion. So these are two different things. Okay. So the process will be culminated when it is cosmically supported beginning in 2027. According to Ra Uruhu, here we have a date thrown out to expect something coming in the future, and a voice told him this, according to him. So beginning in 2027, we'll be moving towards a new kind of awareness referred to as spirit awareness, because the solar plexus is evolving. The solar plexus center, the solar plexus itself is evolving. Okay. Spirit consciousness is the opposite of differentiation. It is about oneness and experiencing ourselves as a single entity. Such consciousness results when the emotional waves between two or more beings are in resonance. As a highly differentiated Interinum species, we cannot even imagine how it would feel to share such consciousness so deeply with others. This developing awareness lies beneath the surface of our present emotional system. As nine-centered beings, we are just beginning to explore and to discover experientially the breadth and depth and comprehensive implications of this solar plexus mutation that we're all a part of. What we do know is that when we bypass the mind's conditioning and live our differentiated and our own truth, understanding, accepting, and loving who we are, we free spirit consciousness to mature on the planet and to move the mutation towards its future fulfillment. The frequencies of the emotional wave. What are we looking at here? The different emotional waves. Source of all wave mechanics, the channel of mating, 59.6. Okay. Tribal is need. The channel of synthesis, which is 19, gates 19 and connecting to gate 49, or the channel of community, gates 37 and 40. And I see that that emotional wave is different than the first one we looked at. Individual, passion, the channel of openness, which is gates 22 connecting to gate 12, and the channel of emoting, gates 39 connecting to gate 55. And then you have collective, desire, which is dealing with the channel of recognition, gates 41 connecting to gate 30, and the channel of transitoriness, gate 36 connecting to gate 35. The defined solar plexus center releases a wave pattern that takes us from one end of the emotional spectrum to the other. It is a chemistry that we experience as feelings, needs, and desires. Each cyclical wave goes from hope to pain, expectation to disappointment, joy to despair, and back again. To create emotional stability in our lives and throughout the world, we must understand, accept, and eventually transcend this wave pattern, none of which is achieved by mind control. You can't control emotions with just the mind. The key to transcending the emotional system and the potential waves that it sends into the environment is waiting. As we wade through the ups and downs, our understanding is deepened. The wave begins to level out, and clarity eventually arrives. Understanding this continual wave movement and waiting for clarity can stop one who is emotionally defined from sending out reactive, premature, chaotic, or harmful emotions into the environment. The source of all wave mechanics, channel 59.6, operates out of the sixth gate, as this is where the emotional wave is created. And then it reaches across to meet the fertile sacral power of the 59th gate, because the 59th gate is in the sacral center. The sixth gate is in the solar plexus center. It is here that need, passion, and desire are created in order to break down barriers and penetrate and bond us together in the dance of intimacy. This emotional wave feels very stable and takes another person to bring it to the surface. The three emotional waves are categorized by their frequency. A person may experience a singular frequency or a combination depending on the definition. The tribal wave, channels 19 to 49 and 37 to 40, operates through physical touch and sensitivity to needs. This wave ratchets up until it explodes and then resets itself to start the process all over again. Let's take an example of a man whose wife is doing something that bothers him. He doesn't tell her how he feels about it, so it continues for weeks. Each time she does it, his emotional wave ratchets up a notch until one day it explodes. The wife has no warning, didn't see it coming, and is taken by surprise. The emotional outburst could be hard on her, but once he releases his built up emotions, he's back to normal. All is fine. When both partners understand the mechanics of this tribal wave, how to anticipate the explosion, how to sort out the real issues, and how differently the outburst affects each of them, they will reach new levels of comfort and understanding in their relationship. For instance, a gradual buildup of emotional tension mixed with a desire for intimacy can be quietly and effectively released by a sensitively placed hand on the shoulder at the end of a long, hard day. No words are necessary for the tribe. It's all in the touch. Mm, hmm. Do you have someone? Leave a comment. Let me know if you have your solar plexus center defined or undefined. And do you have a partner with a defined solar plexus? Talk to me in the comments about that. I have a defined solar plexus, so I could talk about this topic quite a lot. Let's keep going and learn some more about this. This is interesting. The individual wave, channels 39 to 55 and 22 to 12, operates through the expression of moodiness, emotions, melancholy, or passion, but only when in the mood. It moves along on an even keel most of the time, with smaller, shorter up and down spikes. Knowing when to be alone and when to be social makes all the difference. And those with this wave might feel melancholic for a short time until they're moved to a new place along their wave and their mood shifts. Emotional tension in their relationships, when they are down in their wave, is eased by knowing when to take time to be alone with their creative muse. The abstract wave, channels 36 through 35 and 41 to 30, operates through desire and feeling and moves from peaks to valleys. Based on expectation, this wave crashes when the desire or expectation is not met. The trick to transcend this wave is to enter into something just for the experience, without placing any expectations on the outcome. For example, a woman imagines herself in love after only a few dates. She fantasizes about how great the man is and how wonderful their future will be, only to discover that he does not live up to her expectations or share her feelings. Repeated spikes and crashes like these can be tough to handle and may become personally destabilizing over time if she has no awareness of the mechanics of the emotional wave. What is most important to understand about the emotional wave is that it is simply an inescapable chemical process that keeps the wave constantly in motion. No explanations accompany its shifts and swings. Unfortunately, without this awareness, those who are emotionally defined attempt to rationalize their emotions and to explain or make up a reason why they're up or down on their wave. When they feel sad, their friends want to know why and what they can do to make them happy. It can be more important to them to put the blame somewhere rather to embrace and accept the depth and beauty of the chemistry itself. Blaming something on someone for what is pure emotional chemistry can be a great source or can be a source of great confusion when all they need to know is that as the wave moves to another place, they'll feel different. There's no need for a reason for where they are now on the wave or where they'll be tomorrow. They're simply always moving with it. Generally speaking, whether we're emotionally defined or undefined and taking in the conditioning waves of others, we have to be careful not to identify with the wave or its movement as if it were us. Remain the objective observer. We are not the wave, but we're being taken to our deaths by it. Both the highs and lows of the wave can be beautiful when we don't let either of them disturb our inner tranquility, the tranquility of knowing what is normal for us. Society perpetuates the notion that we should be happy all the time. Because of this, most emotionally defined people live their lives fighting against the downside of their wave, convinced that something is wrong with them. True liberation comes when they learn to observe, accept, and embrace the full gamut and gifts of their wave. Awareness and nervousness. The fears that accompany the solar plexus center's present state of emerging awareness are experienced as nervousness based on emotional uncertainty. One never knows for certain how to feel about something or someone or what feeling to base a decision on. Because of the social, relational nature of the solar plexus, with its broad movement from hope to pain, this nervousness can be powerful and pervasive. As people are moved forward along the wave, nervousness is either amplified or disappears, is there or not there. Emotional uncertainty can distort the way that we view things, making mountains out of molehills. The vague or haunting nervousness that arises from living with uncertainty is a form of fear that needs to be confronted in order to be overcome. When those with a defined solar plexus center go through their wave, accessing the depth of their truth and waiting for clarity, they're able to either confirm or dispel the uncertainties and suspicions underlying their nervousness. By properly identifying and effectively confronting their uncertainty, they can move beyond their emotional fears or nervousness and transcends them over time. In this way, fears become emotional intelligence. Each awareness center engenders a particular form of fear. In the solar plexus, fear manifests as nervousness about engaging others, as the constantly moving biochemical wave leaves it emotionally uncertain. Each gate description on the opposite page reveals how fear, as nervous uncertainty, is experienced. Gates of the solar plexus. Tribal wave, need. Gate 37, the family, the gate of friendship, the fear of tradition. Generates the bargain based on the principles of the tribe. Nervousness about possibly having to take on traditional roles in life. Gate 6, conflict, the gate of friction, fear of intimacy. A kind of diaphragm that generates a wave by either opening or closing to intimacy. Nervousness about revealing who you really are. Gate 49, revolution, the gate of principles. Fear of nature. A wave that either accepts or rejects principles based on the needs of the tribe. Nervousness about rejection, unpredictability, and consequences. Individual wave, passion. Gate 22, grace, the gate of openness, fear of silence. Open to listening when in the mood. Uncertain that anyone will listen to you or that there is anything worthwhile to listen to. Gate 55, abundance, the gate of spirit, the fear of emptiness. A melancholy that is personal, nervousness arising from not knowing what to be passionate about. Collective wave, desire. Gate 36, the darkening of the light, the gate of crisis, fear of inadequacy. Driven by the hunger to have the challenge of a new experience. Nervousness about one's sexual, emotional adequacy. Gate 30, the clinging fire, the gate of feelings, fear of the fates. Produces a very powerful wave fueled by desire to feel deeply, nervousness about what might or might not happen. Hold on, let me since we're here, and I'm gonna pull up my chart for myself and see what gates I have. Let me know what gates, if you do have a defined solar plexus, or even if you don't. Let's talk about it. Leave a comment. What gates are in your solar plexus are defined? Okay. In my chart, in my solar plexus, I have gates 6, 37, 49, and 30. Gate 6, 37, 49, and 30. Gate 6, the gate of conflict, gate of friction, fear of intimacy, a kind of diaphragm that generates a wave by either opening or closing to intimacy. Nervousness about revealing who you really are. Gate 30. Okay, because gate 6 is a tribal wave, a need. Gate 30, which is a collective wave talking about desire, the clinging fire, the gate of feelings, fear of the fates, produces a very powerful wave fueled by desire to feel deeply. Nervousness about what might or might not happen. Gate 37, another tribal wave, need, the family gate of friendship, fear of tradition, generates the bargain based on the principles of the tribe, nervousness about possibly having to take on traditional roles in life. And what was the other gate? Gate 49. Another tribal wave. Need. Gate 49, revolution, the gate of principles, fear of nature. A wave that either accepts or rejects principles based on the needs of the tribe. Nervousness about rejection, unpredictability, and consequences. Wow. Here we are learning about ourselves, guys. We're learning. Okay. Moving on, the defined solar plexus center is 53% of the population. There is no truth in the now. Truth reveals itself over time. For those with a defined solar plexus center, this is their place of personal authority, and it operates by awareness over time. They are designed to wait through the ups and downs of the emotional wave before making decisions. It's not easy for them to be patient. The solar plexus is an immature emotional center driven by a motor, and it houses a lot of energy. Their task is to learn how to patiently harness the potential benefits of this energy as they flow with it. Their tendency is to jump in when they're high on their wave and jump out when they're low. In both circumstances, they are emotionally impulsive rather than emotionally clear. Clarity is only available after waiting out the emotional wave. At a minimum, those with a defined solar plexus center need to sleep on things before making an important decision. When the solar plexus is defined, the feelings these people have about this or that become an authoritative guide. These feelings are indicators of what is correct for them or not. Does it feel good to do that? How do you feel about that? These are important questions they need to be asked. It is essential for them to take time to fully experience their range of feelings without being rushed. Emotional clarity is reached when there is no longer an emotional charge attached to the decision. Making decisions from still waters is easier said than done. When people are excited, they tend to jump only to regret it after they reach emotional clarity. Patiently waiting for clarity will protect the defined solar plexus center from making spontaneous decisions that may result in poor choices. I've been learning these things over the years. I'm getting better, guys. I'm doing it. I wait. I don't get emotionally excited and in triggering situations or strange or different situations, unexpected situations. I just observe and I don't immediately react. I don't immediately speak. I try not to immediately react with my body. I just kind of, okay, and I sleep on it. hmm As people move through their wave, it helps to understand that the emotional cycle is a dynamic chemical process and that hope and pain are not endpoints of awareness. Awareness comes as clarity at the end of the emotional wave's cycle. Knowing what is correct takes time, and there are no shortcuts. In addition, emotional clarity is not a certainty. The splenic center gives an absolute answer in the moment, while the constantly moving solar plexus wave samples the present moment as one of many points along the way. In the end, there is no guarantee that 100% emotional clarity is possible because the wave keeps moving. There will come a time, however, when emotional calmness is reached and a deeper truth is recognized about the decision to be made. Solar plexus energy is juicy, seductive, and powerful, which gives those with emotional authority an advantage if they wait out their wave. It's kind of like playing hard to get. The longer others wait, the more they'll want the solar plexus's warmth and energy. In a business negotiation, waiting until they are clear rather than consummating a quick deal gives them the upper hand. If the other backs out before the defined solar plexus reaches clarity, the deal probably wasn't correct for them to begin with. There's a complex interaction between those who are emotionally defined and those who are open. Those with definition are responsible for the emotional environment as a whole because they color it with their waves. They impact others merely by how they feel inside, by the pure mechanics of their chemistry and how it's transmitted through the aura. When those with definition feel good or bad, those with undefined emotional centers will feel very good or very bad as they amplify the frequency. In other words, the undefined center reflects back to those with defined centers just how they're feeling or where they are in their emotional process. It's interesting to note that people with emotional definition, being so familiar with it, don't always notice their emotionality, whereas those who are undefined are conditioned to think that they are the moody, emotional ones instead. The attraction between an undefined and a defined solar plexus is both common and strong among couples. Despite the warmth and strong attraction of this center, those with a defined solar plexus need to take their time when entering into a new relationship. It's only over time that they'll know if someone is right for them or not. When they learn to know someone through their wave, they will know them deeply. They will see how their emotions impact the other person, how that person handles the highs and lows of their emotional wave. Manipulative, manipulative and passive aggressive behaviors can surface in relationships between defined and undefined emotional systems, and it takes time for these patterns to reveal themselves. Long courtships are not only advisable, they're essential to the success of the relationship. The advantage of having emotional definition is the depth that can be cultivated on any topic. As one moves through the waves, its many perspectives can bring great insight. For example, a photographer who wants to understand the nature of a flower. The spleenically oriented photographer would take one picture capturing an exquisite moment. But for those with a defined solar plexus, one picture would never be enough. They would take a series of pictures all day long, changing the light, the perspective, the camera. They would know how the flower looks in the morning and how it looks when the sun sets. They would know its fragrance, how it feels to the touch, and how it looks bending in the wave. When the emotional system is given the time it needs to unfold, it becomes an intelligence with deep sensitivity that grasps things at the ever changing emotional level, the level of spirit. Wow. When those, and that was a beautiful picture he painted. That's great. I get it. That's amazing and makes complete sense. When those with a defined solar plexus do not wait out their wave, they tend to be impulsive, jumping in and out of experiences and decisions on the high or low end of their emotional wave, thereby creating chaos and confusion. They put others in their environment under pressure to make immediate emotional decisions with them. When they're upset, they blow up rather than wait for a moment of calm from which to act or speak, only to regret it later what they said or did. They do not recognize the importance of being alone when down in their wave. Wading through their wave allows emotionally healthy people to be in touch with how they are feeling as they move along their wave. Without being impulsive or spontaneous, they take their time and ride out their emotions until they feel a sense of clarity before making a decision. They understand how their emotions affect others and do not place pressure on them by being pushy. They know how to take advantage of the seductive side of the emotional definition by using their need to wait to reach carefully considered agreements that satisfy the desires of all involved. Wow, these are great tools. I hope you guys are learning and are appreciative and some kind of advice if you have this to deal with your emotional waves. You're not evil. You're not a loser. It's chemistry, and that's great to know, right? Like our body's a factory, guys. We know that. Our body. I'm drinking my tea right now with my herbs. Our bodies are factories. They're doing something with these minerals and nutrients and vitamins and stuff. It's doing something. So all these elements, you're already an alchemist. You are an alchemist because your body does it, so let's go ahead and be thankful that now we know there is a chemistry going on within us, and you can't stop that. You can't logically talk using your mind, talk your way out of this. It's happening. There's no way to avoid it. Learn it. That's what we do, and that's what we're doing right now. So yay. The undefined solar plexus center is 47% of the population. The undefined solar plexus center absorbs and amplifies the emotions present in its environment. This center carries an especially deep conditioning potential and can be particularly vulnerable to the needs, moods, and feelings of other people. It is critical for the health and well being of the emotionally undefined to know when the emotions that they're feeling and expressing are not entirely theirs, and that they can release them and protect themselves by not identifying with them, right? The parents that are here listening, um, you have your you have your children's human design bodygraph chart, right? Does your child have an undefined solar plexus? Because this applies to you. And it applies to everybody with an undefined solar plexus. Parents, teachers, you take pride in having charge of these children, molding them, teaching them. Do you pull the human design chart? Can you pull the human design chart of your students? Can we try this as an exercise? See what we're dealing with in our classroom on the auric, energetic level? Who has an undefined solar plexus amongst us? Because the undefined solar plexus center absorbs and amplifies the emotions present in its environment. Do your children know how to deal with that? Do the students know how to deal with that? Doctors, your children, patients, pediatricians, do they know? Okay, because we're dealing with health, emotional well-being, right? Shoot, mental health, well-being. This center carries an especially deep conditioning potential and can be particularly vulnerable to the needs, moods, and feelings of other people. What about the children? Let's make the world a better place. Let's change things how they're going because, the world is looking real bad. He is in a lot of ways. And I think basic things like this, understanding energy, could go a long way to us learning how to do this stuff and not be kicking against the pricks, fighting brick walls and stuff, going against the current. Let's go with the current. It's critical for the health and well being of these emotionally undefined children to know when the emotions they're feeling and expressing are not entirely theirs, and that they can release them and protect themselves by not identifying with them. Otherwise, they bounce up and down on the emotional waves of others, knowing their emotions are out of control, but interpreting that as something wrong within themselves. They repeatedly make emotional decisions which leave them regretful and plagued by shame or blame, a burden that the undefined solar plexus is not genetically designed to handle. Open centers are like open windows. The solar plexus is designed to take in and sample the emotional field, but only for informational purposes. It's not healthy to identify with or personalize that field, or it becomes theirs. And they do not have a reliably built in way to deal with it. Their solar plexus is open, it's not defined. So they don't have access to this 24/7, so they can't handle that type of energy in a long, sustainable way. They just can't do it. They lose their transparency, their ability to merely reflect on emotion back to its owner. Those with an undefined solar plexus may feel as though they have been emotionally out of control all their lives. When emotionally confronted, they may experience sensations that include fear, terror, shock, and anger. They may bounce from happiness to depression, personalizing emotions and feelings as if they were their own, when in fact they are simply taking in, amplifying, and distorting the emotions of those around them. They may suffer from being punished and rejected by others who perceive them as emotionally unstable. They often feel something is wrong with them. They're generally so sensitive to the emotional climate that they have personalized, emotionally charged events over the years, hanging on to them and taking the blame for what does not belong to them. Children who are open emotionally take in and personalize their family's emotional ups and downs, amplifying and often acting out their confusion. Thinking that they're personally responsible for making the waves, they decide at an early age that it's better to lie about or hide the truth of themselves deep inside rather than suffer a parent's emotional outbursts. When the situation is reversed and the parent is open emotionally and the child is defined, the parent can lose control and become overreactive while amplifying the emotions of the child. Understanding these dynamics can help us raise healthy, stable, independent children and enjoy parenting. Confrontation makes emotionally undefined people nervous. As they mature, they develop not self strategies to avoid emotional backlash by steering clear of confronting others for fear of rocking the boat or upsetting someone. They develop a persona that says, I won't upset you if you won't upset me. Their attempt to sidestep any potential confrontation that might follow if they dare to express their own truth or needs. Yeah, they attempt to sidestep that. Those through those with open solar plexus centers, though those with open plexus centers will never enjoy dealing with emotional confrontation, their strategy and authority will guide them to confrontations which are correct for them to face. It's often just the thought of confrontation that keeps those with an open solar plexus frozen in terror. Their actual confrontation may be much easier than imagined. When they stand in their own authority, and the results may end up being the best thing that could happen because it's correct. Excuse me. If confrontations are always avoided, life is lived on a superficial level. It helps to remember that on the other side of pain is pleasure, and on the other side of fear is the freedom to be ourselves. Confrontation, when handled correctly, when we simply speak our own truth rather than blaming someone else, is a catalyst for healthy transformation. Access to the full spectrum of this center's great pleasures, such as sexual energy, food, passion, excitement, romance, and music, is available to those with defined or undefined solar plexus centers. For emotions to be a beautiful experience, for the undefined center, however, they cannot identify with them. Awareness of the emotional wave allows them to let go of patterns and emotions that never belonged to them, which in itself can bring tremendous relief. When they understand why emotions have been so difficult, they can begin to properly realign their lives to their own personal authority. They're able to discern who is or is not emotionally healthy for them and when it is appropriate to confront others with their truth or needs or to walk away. They discern which emotional fears are theirs to deal with and which are not, and do not make emotional decisions. They realize the emotions that they take in and feel in an amplified state are from others and do not attach to them. A healthy, undefined solar plexus center is a barometer of the emotional health of others. It can be a great objective observer of the emotional climate. Its wisdom takes the form of discerning who is making progress towards emotional health, stability, and spirit awareness. On its own, it can remain emotionally cool and allows those with undefined solar plexus to rely on their strategy. When they suddenly feel uncomfortable emotionally, they know they can leave the room and the conditioning auras of others until the coolness returns. It's a good practice for them to enjoy some time alone every day in order to release the emotional conditioning that they've taken in. Completely open solar plexus center. Although many characteristics of the undefined solar plexus center also apply, the completely open solar plexus differs in that it does not have any way of filtering or connecting to incoming potent emotional energy. right? These are the open solar plexus that don't have any defined gates either. None of the numbers are colored in. Those with a completely open center can be confused by what they're feeling and don't know how to interpret it. They don't know what to desire, when to be sensitive or passionate, or how to recognize and deal with people's needs or mood. They often feel something is wrong with them emotionally. The potential wisdom is to know and understand the emotional waves in their purest state without anything coloring or prejudicing them. Hmm. Not self talk of the undefined solar plexus center. The not self mind is the spokesperson for the undefined centers and tells us what we should say or do. Noticing this talk is essential to deconditioning. Here are some examples of what the not self mental monologue could sound like with an undefined solar plexus center. I don't want to go there because I don't want to deal with the confrontation. Let's go here because there won't be any confrontation to deal with. Let's not say that because it might upset that person. Let's say it like this to soften the potential confrontation. Let's be really nice and smile a lot so they like me. There's no point in going there because I might be disappointed or be rejected. It's not worth it. I'm afraid it won't work out, so why bother? I'm afraid to tell her the truth because I don't want to hurt her feelings. So that's the not self talk of the undefined solar plexus. So if these fears running your mind, there's all kinds of things you can learn to do to overcome that. Knowledge is power, tribe. The heart center, willpower, ego, and the material world. Biological correlation. The small size and unobtrusive position of the heart center in the body graph is deceiving, as it has a significant physiological impact on our life. Its four gates are associated with the stomach, gate 40, the thymus gland, gate 26, the heart, gate 21, and the gallbladder, gate 51. Those who are unaware of how this center operates are more vulnerable to diseases of the heart and digestive system. And when the heart stops, everything stops. Mm. So, more health information. Those who are unaware of how this heart center works are more vulnerable to diseases of the heart and digestive system. Willpower and self esteem. The heart center is a powerful motor that drives willpower and ego power, enormously influential forces in the world. The bedrock of society is rooted in the will to survive in the community and thrive on the material plane. The heart center has a direct connection to the throat center and therefore speaks and acts for the tribe. From the beginning, it has been the tribe that provided the support system that ensured the survival of the family, community, and nations. It established the foundations for our communal and entrepreneurial ways of life. Community organization created a safe, interdependent environment that made it possible for people to specialize, take their unique skills to great heights, and progress as groups or as individuals. Our great civilization could not have been built without the tribe's supportive, hierarchical structures held in place by the four gates of the heart center. These gates determine the different ways that members of the tribe connect to one another in order to successfully live out what is called the material way. These gates are about making our daily bread, bonding and living in harmony with others, bringing children into the world, and creating infrastructures like societies, cultures, and religions to nurture and support what we create. At the present time, the tribe is undergoing stressful structural change that challenges its entrepreneurial and communal foundation. Changes which call into question the authority and stability of our most fundamental traditions and institutions. The fear engendered by these changes magnifies the pressure on those with open heart centers to provide their worth in order to survive the uncertainty. Issues of self esteem and self worth surface and affect every level of our life, from relationships to our work to what we believe to giving ourselves permission to play and enjoy this incredible life that we've been given. The bottom line is that self esteem is a place from which we move into the world with confidence as a valued and contributing member of society and receive material and personal support in return. Without this firm belief and trust in ourselves and our own value, we lose our will to meet the challenges of life. Unless the ego is affirmed in its healthy state and reassured of its value by ourself or others, it shuts down and self esteem becomes self loathing. Self hatred exacts a terrible price from humanity. In this context, it becomes clear why so many heart and digestive problems are related to the ways in which the not self compensates for poor self esteem. The tendency towards overachievement, making promises or bargains that we don't have the willpower to keep, and laboring beyond what our heart muscle is able to support in order to prove our worth, are all symptoms of trying to prove our worthiness. Understanding the mind's role in determining how we ultimately value ourselves or not can eliminate a great deal of unnecessary pain and suffering in our life. Here's the gates of the heart center. Gate 21, biting through. The gate of the hunter or huntress. To be in control, to control the circumstances. Gate 40, deliverance. The gate of aloneness. To deliver, the will to provide. Gate 26, the taming power of the great. The gate of egoist. To be the best, the salesperson or marketer. Gate 51, the arousing, the gate of shock. To be competitive, to be first at something. That's interesting. I noticed on the other ones, he would the fear that comes with each gate was also listed, but here on the gates of the heart center, it doesn't give us that third line, letting us know the fear that comes with that gate. Um, the defined heart center, people with defined heart centers are 37% of the population. If you have a defined heart center, you like to be in control of your own life and your resources. That includes what you wear, when and where you work, and which demands on your time that you'll respond to. You also recognize your own value, although at times you may tend to inflate it. It's healthy for those with a defined heart center to exercise their willpower, to make and keep promises with regularity. With consistent access to their willpower, they have no problem making and keeping their promises or resolutions. Remember, that heart, I think they said it was a motor. The heart center is a motor. So that's a motor. It's going. Um, it's important that they do what they say they're going to do. Since this is how others develop a level of trust in them, they should only make promises that they can and will keep. In this way, they strengthen their natural sense of self esteem. They enjoy working, though they prefer to be in a position where they can be their own boss. In this way, they can follow their natural internal mechanism, which tells them when to work and when it's time to rest. They enjoy successfully delivering the goods, and being willful and competitive comes naturally to them. When they listen carefully to their inner guidance, they'll know when their great ego strength can best be brought to bear on a situation and still maintain a balance between work and rest. Those with a defined heart center should not allow anyone to deny them an honest and clear expression of their ego and willpower. Their assertive I, me, mine statements strengthen the heart, whereas suppressing their natural ego energy can be detrimental to their health. They are proving themselves all the time, which is both important and correct for them, and they'll do it naturally as long as they follow their strategy and authority. They willingly commit their willpower to provide for the family and the community when it's right for them to do so. Even though they enjoy their work, they like to be appreciated and rewarded for their contribution. With a defined heart center, it's easy to get carried away and come across as too forceful. When not guided by their strategy and personal authority, they can place unrealistic expectations on those with an undefined heart center to be competitive and willful as well. They can attempt to pump others up or pump them to perform beyond their capacity, which eventually leads to unnecessary pain and misunderstanding. Eventually, these behaviors will meet with resistance, indicating that it is time to step back and regain a healthy inner balance of power. The undefined heart center, 63% of the population. People with undefined heart centers are not designed to be willful and competitive, yet they often feel driven by a need to find the courage to exercise their will. Why can't I get what they have? Why can't I get what they have? They ask. Why can't I be as fast or as good as they are? I should be able to compete with them. While they want to exercise willpower and to make and keep promises, they do not understand that they have no consistent energy to support either one. We live in a world that sends a constant stream of messages that we should, could, and can be better, prettier, richer, faster, and more successful if only we would do this or that. This propaganda puts tremendous pressure on us to make more, do more, and be more. People with an undefined heart center get trapped in a vicious cycle. If they fail to live up to expectations or to fulfill their commitments and promises, they make further promises to make up for their sense of self deficiency, only to fail again. Each time they feel worse, and their self esteem spirals down further. Overachieving is the one way the undefined heart center compensates for a seeming lack of will, for a sense that it doesn't have what it takes. When a person undervalues themselves to begin with, they'll attempt to accomplish more than anybody else in order to prove how valuable they are. They will themselves into impossible situations, trying to do something they can't possibly complete. An undefined heart center is susceptible to amplification by a defined heart center's willpower and can deceive itself into thinking it suddenly has the will to make and keep a commitment. This borrowed willpower evaporates, however, as soon as the person with the defined heart center leaves. This is frequently the case during motivational workshops, where one supposedly leaves with enough direction and enthusiasm to allow through and or allow through to follow through, this allows one to supposedly leave with enough direction and enthusiasm to follow through and accomplish the goal, only to watch the good intentions and the willpower fade away when on one's own again. Mm, mm, mm. The challenge for those with an undefined heart center is that they generally do not consider themselves worthy and will accept less of everything, including love, money, and happiness, because they assume they do not deserve it. If they rely on their minds rather than strategy and authority, they'll be proving themselves forever. The more the mind gets into the game of trying to prove value or worthiness, the more one is going to fail, and the cycle of self depreciation or depreciation will continue to repeat itself. The solution is to relieve the mind of its assumed authority and return the authority to where it belongs. The mantra for an undefined heart center is never make a promise to yourself or others. The open heart has nothing to prove to anyone under any circumstance, ever. It is such a gift not to have to prove one's worth. Imagine 63% of all people at peace with themselves, knowing that they'll be guided to commitments which are correct for them by their personal authority, not by a need to appear worthy. With this realization comes wisdom and awareness. A person without heart-centered definition can take in the vibration of other egos, become wise about who has a healthy sense of self-esteem and who does not. They recognize who can or cannot deliver on a commitment. They learn that they do not have to compete with anyone, and they do not let anyone convince them to do or to commit to anything merely to demonstrate their worth. The completely open heart center. People with completely open heart centers do not naturally have a good, solid grasp of what worthiness is, how to measure it, or what one needs to do to achieve it. When not living within their realm of personal authority, they're prone to wavering between feeling an exaggerated sense of importance and of having no worth at all. With fragile or inconsistent self esteem and a nagging sense of inadequacy, they are particularly vulnerable to being manipulated and controlled by people who promise to convey worthiness on them by association or by believing this or that propaganda. When it comes to wisdom about the trustworthiness of one's word and the use of money and personal power on the material plane, however, these are people to look to. Their wisdom is released by accepting that they have nothing to prove and that they can rely on their strategy and authority to provide for their needs. The not self talk of the undefined heart center. The not self mind is the spokesperson for the undefined centers and tells us what we should say or do. Noticing this talk is essential to deconditioning. Here's some examples of what the not self mental monologue could sound like with an undefined heart center. I better do this because if I don't, I won't be worthy. I have to be in control. I have to be brave. I have to pump myself up so I feel worthy and good about myself, and then others will see my value. I have to be loyal so that others will see how valuable I am, and so that I can prove to myself how valuable I am. If I just tell it like this and make this promise, then they'll see how wonderful I am. If I show them how trustworthy I am, then they'll like me. They think I can do this, so I better prove to them that I can. If I'm in control, then I can prove my worth. I'm not a good wife, lover, or friend unless I can prove it, or unless I prove it. So, big ups to those with an undefined heart center and your journey to overcoming these specific fears that your mind keeps projecting to you. You can overcome. I believe in you. I'm rooting for you. Sacral center, power of fertility, vital energy, responsibility, availability, and sexuality. Biological correlation. The sacral center corresponds to the ovaries in a woman and the testes in a man. All life on the planet is fostered by the life force energy generated in this center. Wow. It empowers our survival by replicating life and by providing the impulse to nurture and care for our young. Sexuality, work, fertility, vitality, movement, and persistence are its major themes. As the body's prime motor, the sacral has enormous power that works in both a generative and a degenerative way. If we do not understand how to properly engage and support the mechanics of the sacral, it will atrophy and degenerate prematurely, leaving one frustrated and unhealthy. This motor's built-in work rest cycle requires that it exhausts its supply of available energy each day in order to sleep well. While it rests, it recharges its batteries. If it's forced to do what it hasn't responded to, its generative capacity quickly becomes degenerative and burnout results. The sacral center's generating capacity peaks around age 18 in men and between ages 33 to 34 in women. Work, reproduction, sexuality, and perseverance. Anyone with a defined sacral center is a generator by type. The sacral generates the creative life force and has the power to guide and sustain life. Its receptive frequency is designed to respond to what it meets in a protective, healthy, honest, creative, and persevering manner. This center distinguishes itself from the other centers in three significant ways: its complexity, second only to the throat center, its capacity to generate the life force, and its ability to communicate its moment to moment availability through its own responsive guttural sounds. Whoa. These sacral sounds emerge out of a trustworthy inner guidance system that existed long before the capacity for speech evolved. With almost 70% of the world's population capable of being guided by defined sacral centers, there's a huge but as yet untapped potential among humanity for awakening and awareness. The receptive sacral center is designed to respond to life, to what it's being asked of it, and by making expressive noises and sounds. These primal sounds, which do not originate in our throat center, but vibrate from our midsection, like a diaphragm opening or closing, let us know if we have the energy for something or not. These sounds tell us if we like what we see or hear or are asked to do or not. Everyone who honors the nature of their sacral and the guidance of its sounds is in touch with their own power. The sounds can vary person to person, culture to culture, but they are simple and easily recognized. A yes might be an open-ended sound like right? Yep, sure will. Sure do want to do that. Yeah, sure do want to eat that. Yeah, but yeah, with the accent on the last syllable. While a closed emphasis on the first syllable means no. Nope, not at all. Mm-mm. If the answer to a question is a or I don't know, then perhaps the timing is not right or the question needs to be rephrased. People with defined sacrals do not and cannot really know what is correct for them unless they hear their sacral's response. Reconnecting with and learning to trust in their sounds, once again, are the first steps towards living true to themselves and establishing the potential for personal transformation. Generator children make these sounds naturally until they're conditioned to answer with words. They'll make little or noises when asked yes or no questions. Parents who encourage such responses when they ask questions and who honor their child's inner guidance nurture self confidence. The sacral defined to the throat. The manifesting energy of throat to motor connections with the heart, solar plexus, and root centers pushes outward or moves towards something or someone and is described as an initiating energy. The specific enveloping energy that the sacral motor emits naturally draws life and people into its embrace so it can respond to them and is described as responsive. This is why generators meet with resistance when they try to initiate. They are attempting to reverse the sacral's natural energy flow. When the sacral motor is defined to the throat center, however, through channel 3420, for example, we have an anomaly where the sacral's generative power is converted into a potential for manifestation. The defined sacral then has the potential to move immediately from response to action. People with a sacral throat connection, called manifesting generators, often experience their responses as actual physical movement towards or away from something or someone rather than simply as sacral sounds. Manifesting generators are discussed more in detail in Section 3. The 9 gates of the Sacral Center describe the availability of the life force and reveal the many processes that the Sacral Center supports or not. The gates of the Sacral Center are described in the table on the next page. Right? And when you think of gates, just for the future, when you think of gates, it's synonymous with hexagrams, the hexagrams of the I Ching. So the gate 34 would be hexagram 34 in the I Ching. Gates of the Sacral Center. Gate 34 is the power of the great, the gate of power. And once again, I'm not seeing the fear that potentially also is associated with this gate. But anyway, gate 34 is pure power to empower. Gate 35, waiting, the gate of fixed patterns. The energy to set and repeat patterns and rituals in order to ensure a consistent flow. Gate 14, possession in great measure, the gate of power skills. Releases energy, money, and resources to empower direction in life. It releases energy like money and resources to empower direction in life. Ooh. Gate 29, the gate of perseverance, commits to an experience completely for true discovery potential. Gate 59, dispersion, the gate of sexuality, the sexual energy to bond with a mate. Gate 9, the taming power of the small, the gate of energy for detail, concentrated energy to establish a pattern. Gate 3, difficulty at the beginning, the gate of ordering, brings order to the mutative pulse frequency. Gate 42, increase, the gate of growth, closes a cycle and brings things to an end. Gate 27, nourishment, the gate of caring, nourishes and protects for survival. The defined sacral center is people with that are 66% of the population. Those who enter the world with a defined sacral center are the custodians of an enormous source of power. And that includes me. I have a defined sacral center. Do you have a defined sacral center or is yours undefined? Let me know in the comments. Every day, their sacral motor generates a certain amount of energy that feels like a constant buzz humming away within them. This is a genuine vitality which can be experienced as restlessness, an inability to sit still, or a need to burn energy by being active. Nothing is more important for them than to find personal expression and deep satisfaction by using their daily supply of energy for work or activities that they love to do. The sacral is very powerful in response. When asked a yes or no question, its immediate response reveals whether the energy requested is currently available to itself and others or not. If a response is affirmative or moves towards something, the sacral's full power is behind the decision. If the response is unenthusiastic or the energy feels like it's pulling back, the activity cannot be sustained without overextending the sacral's generative energy. For example, when somebody asks, "Do you want to learn how to play tennis?" and you hear the sacral say, that is the truth. And this truth must be honored because it's the only way that defined sacrals will know if they have the energy for what they're being asked to do. In practical terms, what they heard was their sacral voice telling them that the energy is not available at this time. Each negative sacral response sets a clear and healthy boundary that protects them from potential harm, embarrassment, or from merely overextending their energy. They cannot stick with commitments that they have not entered correctly through response. They cannot stick with commitments that they have not entered correctly through response. Sacral energy is simply not available to support decisions made with your mind. That's why it's essential to know how to respond and how to correctly engage this energy in productive and fulfilling ways. If generators allow a mental decision to usurp their sacral's immediate response, they'll most likely meet resistance, experience exhaustion, frustration, and unhappiness, or quit. Not completing what they've started has earned generators a reputation for being the great quitters of the world. Avoiding this scenario begins with understanding that the nature of the sacral's frequency is to persevere in order to master a skill or achieve competency. This energy is set in motion and sustained by response by correctly committing their energy to begin with. Unlike manifestation, which occurs through the throat center, sacral energy reaches plateaus and must have the power to persist through these stuck points until a sudden breakthrough, initiation, propels one to the next level of mastery. Without sacral energy, these recurring plateaus can become insurmountable obstacles, sources of frustration, fatigue, and the temptation to quit. The only way that those with a defined sacral can make sure that their persevering sacral energy is firmly behind them from the beginning is through an affirmative response. The mantra and strategy, therefore, for the defined sacral center is do not initiate. Never take the first step or move towards something without being asked so it can respond. The moment that one initiates, the connection to the sacral source of the power to persevere is broken. The secret is to wait and keep the sacral available so they can respond to exactly what is right for each of us individually. Listening to the primal sounds of the sacral responses tells one if there is enough energy available. Knowing that there is reliable energy to fulfill a commitment and finding satisfaction in doing it builds a generator's confidence in making decisions that are correct and builds trust in sacral sounds. Others can feel the powerful and available resources of a defined sacral center, and they'll want to take advantage of this energy. Letting the mind talk the sacral into doing something that is not right for it will simply lead to frustration and a society of slaves working with no energy as something that they do not love. We must honor the sacral's limitations by honoring its guidance through the sounds that it makes. Perhaps the hardest thing for people with sacral definition to accept is that their trustworthy response is a mechanical process and neither rational nor aware. Responses are not judgments of right or wrong, and they do not come with the rational or articulated vocabulary to explain them. Response is so pure that it bypasses awareness together. Generators often describe it as life making a decision through them, and that's exactly what happens. It doesn't matter what they think their life should look like, as the life force knows what is correct for them and what they have energy for. This is their truth. Their patient and expectant waiting allows the universe to bring life to them. This to them, while their response attunes them to the ebb and flow of the unique path and purpose that they're here to live. The undefined sacral center, 34% of the population. Wow, we're getting towards the end, you guys. My mind is clearly not as focused as it could be. I keep stumbling over these words. Yep, yep, yep. It's cool. Stick in there with me. The undefined sacral center is always vulnerable to the intense conditioning field or buzz created by the majority of human beings on the planet with defined sacrals. It's extremely sensitive to the energy level in people and places and is capable of magnifying those energies. Those with undefined sacrals are subject to elevated levels of energy pumping through their bodies that their bodies are not equipped to handle. They often run on this borrowed energy and overextend themselves, leading to breakdown and exhaustion. Not designed to live in response, they can never rely on their own sounds to guide their decisions or to tell them when enough is enough. Without a defined sacral center, the manifestor, projector, and reflector types are purely subject to energy excesses. They are not born knowing when enough is enough or how to establish healthy boundaries for themselves. With their undefined sacral filled to overflowing by other people's energies, they're always busy with work and family and never know when to quit. They take on too much and feel like slaves, but don't really know what to do about it. When they recognize that they're tired, they override this and push on through, jeopardizing their health. They don't know when or understand how to pull away from the sacral energy around them and realign with their own personal authority. It's difficult for them to know when it's correct to enter a situation or relationship versus when to wait, or how long to stay, or when to get out. They're constantly taking in other people's sacral field, so it's wise to make sure that the field is the right kind for their vehicle. Understanding how they connect to the people around them is the key to maintaining their vitality and a healthy open sacral, and this can only be achieved by experimenting with their strategy and authority. The sacral center is about the availability or not of pure, generative life force energy, particularly sexual energy. The undefined sacral has no consistent boundaries, and with a potential for deep conditioning in this area, can be anywhere from mildly curious to obsessed with sex. Each sexual experience will be unique because the undefined sacral is being conditioned either positively or negatively by its partner. This information is especially important for teenagers as they mature. The potential wisdom of this undefined center is to learn about healthy sex and safe boundaries and to be able to discern when enough is enough. This includes learning to rely on their strategy and authority to enter relationships correctly in the first place. Consistent levels of generative and persevering energy are not available to people with an undefined sacral. The energy is there, and then it's not. If they understand and respect this, they will take time to rest when rest is needed. They should not ignore their energy levels. Failure to properly manage their energy can lead to serious sleep problems, resulting in insufficient, non rejuvenating rest. Just as they amplify the defined sacral's energy, they can also magnify its fatigue, erroneously thinking it's their own. The healthy bedtime practice for undefined sacrals is to go to bed early before they're tired to ease into sleep. They need this quiet time alone to release the sacral energy buzz that they've taken in during the day. Hmm, right? Because we all got auras and we're picking up energy from everything all day, even animals, plants, reptiles. We saw the charts. They all got these type of things going on. We all got auras, trees. Most people with undefined sacrals, when truly honest, admit that they don't really want to work. They would love to relax and let others do the hard work. When we observe those with undefined sacrals, however, this usually is not what we experience because the sacral is one of the most easily and deeply conditioned centers. The sheer number of defined sacrals and the size of the overall generator field on the planet easily overwhelms undefined sacrals. When at peace with their undefined sacral, however, the three open sacral types are relaxed, have healthy boundaries, and through their authority know when enough is enough. They work in spurts, taking plenty of time for rest. They respect their inconsistent energy flow. They enjoy taking in the life force energy of others without responding to it or identifying with it. They balance their work with rest and become wise about the ways the creative, powerful, and responsive energy of the sacral operates and can be best utilized by those who are generating it. The completely open sacral center. The completely open sacral does not know what to use its energy for. It finds its own energy scattered all over the place, drawn to this or that. There's no longer a question of knowing when enough is enough. It merely waits for exhaustion from inappropriate and excessive activity to overwhelm it so it can stop. Many have been drawn through this openness into a fascination with who we are and why we exist. People with completely open sacrals, like Krishnamurti, Osho, and Ra Uru Hu, have given us deep insights into the nature of being. The wisdom available here is that one can truly measure the life force, can become wise about what energy is really for, and can then express or describe the many qualities that this energy, this unique energy, makes available to humanity. Here's some of the not self talk of the undefined sacral center. The not self mind is the spokesperson for the undefined centers and tells us what we should say or do. Noticing this talk is essential to deconditioning. Here's some examples of what the not self mental monologue could sound like with an undefined sacral center. Let's keep working. We really need to get this done. We need to say yes to that, otherwise, we might miss out on something. I can keep going. Let me just get a cup of coffee. We can do that too. Not a problem. We're not tired yet. I don't want to take a nap or lay down. There's too much to do. Let's take care of that for them. I have to do it myself. Let's go find a mate. Who can we take care of? Life is juicy. Who wants to say no? Yes, we're doing all the work, but then someone has to do it. I don't think it's enough yet. Boundaries? What boundaries? And finally, we're moving on to the last of the 9 centers on the bodygraph chart. The G center. Love, identity, and direction. It's the seat of the magnetic monopole, higher self. The biological correlation. Biologically, the G center is associated with the liver and the blood. Liver function determines the health of our blood, and blood carries nutrients and oxygen to every organ and cell in the body. Once liver cells are damaged, they cannot be replaced. Are we sure about that? Tribe, can damaged liver cells be replaced? Fact check. I just want to know. We know that alcohol destroys the liver and robs a person of their identity. The spiritual nature of this center has its roots in Indo-European traditions, which held that reincarnation took place through the liver. This coincides with the human design system's understanding of the role of the magnetic monopole in our incarnating process. It draws us into a body and leaves when that body dies. Magnetism, right? Everything is frequency and magnetism. I realized this long ago. That's what the universe is made out of, frequency and magnetism. And so we're being told here that in the G center, we all have a personal magnetic monopole. And not just all humans, all things, the animals, the mammals, we saw their charts. Everything has a magnetic monopole in it. It draws us into a form, whether plant, animal, or human, and leaves when that form dies. Love, identity, and direction. Love. The G center is the most extraordinary center in the bodygraph. Its essential and mystical component, the magnetic monopole, is a magnet with a single pole. Everything else in human design exists as a binary. This single pole only attracts, and what it attracts is love and beauty. Take a moment to look at your own mandala, and you can get a mandala. I have my mandala and my human design bodygraph chart. So within the human design system, you can get your information as a bodygraph chart. You can get it as a mandala, and most often the mandalas have both the bodygraph centered in the center of the mandala, and around the inner circle is your astrology signs, and outside of that is the gates and hexagrams. So it will show you that the gate and hexagram is in this certain astrological sign, right? And then outside of that, the outer circle of the mandala is the I Ching design, little symbols for that hexagram or gate, right? Okay, so take a moment to look at your own mandala. Notice the spokes of your definition radiating from the outer wheels inward towards the yellow diamond at the center of the body graph. One moment. Okay, I have here the book cover. So see the G center magnetic monopole is that yellow diamond in the middle. And as you can see here, the spokes go out from the outward going inward. They're all pointed at the magnetic monopole in the G center. You see that? Let's zoom in a little bit. All the wheels on this, the spokes on this wheel are all directed. You're going straight, pointing all towards this G center, because in the G center is the magnetic monopole. It's a magnet. So it's drawing these energies inward. Okay. The G center's strategic position illuminates its importance in the mandala and in our life. It illustrates how the cosmic planetary influences revolve around this center, while the magnetic monopole within it draws towards us what is specifically ours, by definition, to experience over the course of our lifetime. We are designed to live that love which is attracted to us, beginning with loving ourselves. Prior to our incarnation, the magnetic monopole and the design crystal fit together perfectly. As the baby's body forms during pregnancy, the design crystal moves into the Anja center, and the magnetic monopole takes up residence in the G center, creating what is described as the illusion of separateness. Their separation creates a sort of longing between them that we experience as a lifelong search for love. And love, in one form or another, is what life is all about. This feeling of separation is what drives us to look outside ourselves for love, trying to get a sense of where we are going and who we are in relation to others. We're trying to become worthy of the elusive love that we seek. The mind takes advantage of this seeking and, through our open centers, exaggerates both our longing and our desire to know ourselves. The joke is that everything has been right here within us all along. We do not have to look outside ourselves to discover who we are or where to go to find love. The G Center holds love. Love is the force that permeates and binds the universe, pulling everything towards a state of oneness again. Surrendering to the direction of our form is how we're designed to experience the fullness of that love. We're not here to be loved, but to be loved. Identity. The magnetic monopole is responsible for several aspects of our experience of life, from before death to after death, from before birth to after death. One aspect is creating our identity during life by holding the personality and design crystals in quantum in our body graph. This unique and individual blueprint separates or differentiates us from everyone else. Even if we don't have a conscious or enduring sense of ourself, we can know and literally see in the body graph that it is there. Direction. Another aspect is the internal pull exerted by the magnetic monopole, which holds us in our place within the totality and keeps us on our path. It's like having our own inner GPS, and this pull allows our unique role in life to naturally play out. Without it, we would have no sense of differentiation. We would feel at one with the totality rather than being individuated. There would also be nothing to hold us together, along with everything else in the universe, in our perceived separateness. It is the magnetic monopole that differentiates or separates us, and its mysterious and mystical attracting force is called love. Our personality and design crystals are held together like two people in a forced marriage. Once we accept their specific roles and resolve our own internal conflict between these two sides of our being, we can attain a state of self acceptance and self love. Only then are we capable of receiving and giving the love that we enter life yearning for. The magnetic monopole knows where we are, where we're going, and how to get us there. It attracts all the people, places, and events that we're here to encounter to us, determining the way life itself is attracted to and authentically lived through us. We call this movement in time through space our trajectory or direction. We are moved along this trajectory one correct decision at a time. It is futile to go looking for anything since living correctly will bring to us the life and the love that is perfect for us. We have a driver to get us there, and all we have to do is sit back and, through our strategy and authority, let the magnetic monopole guide our vehicle. Since the beginning, everything has been moving unidirectionally in space. Everything that exists in any shape, state, or form is part of this movement. According to one of the great laws of science, no two objects can occupy the same space at the same time. Everything that is moving and everything is moving has a unique geometry. Our lives are about geometry. The ancients refer to this as destiny. This word, however, often implies predetermination. The difference between destiny and geometry can be best seen in the way the two explain death. Destiny, predetermination, says the time of death is fixed and written. Geometry says only that the direction towards death is fixed. Incarnation crosses of the vessel of love and the Sphinx. When placed, this is new, right? Incarnation crosses? What? Incarnation crosses of the vessel of love and the Sphinx. When placed within the mandala, the 8 gates of the diamond-shaped G center form a symmetrical configuration that brings the 12 signs of the zodiac from the inner wheel into a conversation with the 8 gates of the G center in the outer wheel. The mandala illustrates the way that the magnetic monopole, through its core of love inside us, draws our life to us from the macrocosm of the universe that surrounds and informs us. 2 pivotal incarnation crosses are represented in this configuration. The first is the cross of the vessel of love. Its 4 gates represent the love of humanity, which is gate 15, the love of self, which is gate 10, universal love, the ability to love existence without discrimination, gate 25, and the love of the body, gate 46. The magnetic monopole regulates the mechanics of these transpersonal forms of love as well as their integral opposites, forms of hate. Without the longing that the magnetic monopole creates in its separation from the design crystal, or without the tension between the design, red, and personality, black, that it holds in quantum as our identity, there would be no place to experience the push pull of a love hate binary. We live in a duality, and one cannot exist without the other. What we seek is balance and harmony between them. The cross of the Sphinx, which is another one of those incarnation crosses, which represents direction, is the second. The second pivotal incarnation cross represented here. The cross of the Sphinx, which represents direction, is the second. With separation and differentiation comes the need for a reference point from which to take our bearings, a point of comparison. If there were no differentiation of the self, there would be no direction and no need for us to have one. If all is one, there's nowhere to go. 3 of the 4 gates of the cross of the Sphinx operate like perspectives that point us towards the past, present, or future. The 4th gate is the driver, gate 2. The driver can look at its place in the now, gate 1. It can look back, gate 13, or it can look ahead, gate 7. These same 4 gates are also called road gates, and our role in life is lived out according to the correctness of our geometry, our direction. The complex and fascinating mathematics, beauty, and symmetry of these 2 crosses are explored in greater detail in advanced courses of study. But of note here is how the cross of the vessel of love encompasses the full cycle of life. Its 4 gates mark the beginning of each of the 4 seasons. The vernal or spring equinox takes place when the sun enters the 25th gate. The summer solstice is celebrated when the sun enters the 15th gate. The autumnal equinox occurs when the sun enters the 46th gate, and the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, begins when the sun enters the 10th gate. Now, that's very interesting, and that's good. Okay, so we'll get into these incarnation gates later on in the book, of course, but if you have pulled your human design chart, depending on where you pulled it from, it should tell you what your incarnation cross is. Mine's is called the cross of the vessel of love, 2. So there's 2 crosses of the vessel of love, and mine's is part 2. So we'll get to all that later. Leave a comment. Let me know what your incarnation cross is, and we'll learn about it later as we go on in this book. Gates of the G Center. Gates of direction. Gate 1, the creative, the gate of self-expression. And once again, I don't see the fear associated with this specific gate given on this list. With gate 1, it's about our place in the now and the capacity for creativity. Gate 13, the fellowship of man, the gate of the listener. Direction or directing by looking back, hearing other people's secrets. Gate 7, the army, the gate of the role of the self in interaction. Direction or directing by looking forward, leading by influence. And gate 2, all these are under the gates of direction in this G Center. Gate 2, the receptive, the gate of the direction of the self, direction or vision, the director or the driver. And now, gates of love. Gate 15, modesty, the gate of extremes, love of humanity, embracing different rhythms and extremes of behavior. Gate 10, treading, the gate of the behavior of the self, love of the self, the love of being oneself. Gate 25, innocence, the gate of the spirit of the self, universal love, retaining innocence despite circumstances. Gate 46, pushing upward, the gate of determination of the self, love of the body, determination to follow through. 57% of the population has a defined G center. Are you one of them? Let me know. Those with a defined G center have a fixed and reliable self-identity, a sense of being loved and lovable. Secure in their love for themselves, they can love others without becoming dependent on them. They have a sense of their own correct direction or mission in life and are naturals at pointing out new directions and possibly new loves for others. With a deep sense of connectedness to their center, they have the capacity to comfort people who are concerned about the direction humanity is heading in by helping them understand the nature of our evolution as a species. Hey, look at me doing just what it says, right? With a deep sense of connectedness, and I have a defined G center, I have the capacity to comfort people who are concerned about the direction humanity is heading in by helping them understand the nature of our evolution as a species. Of doing this by having this book club and reading this book to you right now in living color as we speak. Yes. A common dilemma for them, especially if not relying on their authority, is expecting everyone to go where they're going, even though they don't always know where life will take them or how they'll get there. This can be divisive if they try to direct or lead others without waiting to be asked or invited. If they forget that not everyone is designed to go the same way that they're going, what they don't understand is that they can't change or control their own direction. So if another person isn't comfortable with it or able to follow along, both parties need to be free to follow their own path. Although their G center is defined, succumbing to expectations imposed on them or conditioned by others while rejecting their own direction and thereby denying themselves love can lead them to experience such a sense of loss in their life that they give up on themselves altogether. Mm. The undefined G center, and that's 43% of the population. People with undefined G centers have no fixed identity. This is not a handicap, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with them. What is difficult for them to comprehend is living without knowing who they are or having a consistent and reliable sense of identity. No one truly knows the parameters of their open personality, and neither do they. They blend in or adapt to the people that they interact with, and they can fit in anywhere or nowhere. One way or the other, they're always subject to the auric influences, or definition, people with defined, you know, G centers, of the people in their environment. They're here to be initiated into the many ways there are of being. Over time, a comfortable sort of identity emerges for them when they're in stable relationships that are correct and supportive of them. They're most vulnerable to begin with in relationships because opposites still attract. A person with definition is naturally attracted to a person with an open center, and vice versa. Those with open G centers gain security from a sense of borrowed identity and direction, and those with a defined G center see themselves reflected back and think, they're just like me. If open Gs are aligned with their own design, they will recognize that what the other person sees is merely a reflection, and the defined Gs will recognize that their partner is not just like them. If the relationship continues while ignorant of the differences, the defined partner will impose themselves, their identity, and their direction without realizing what's happening. People with an undefined G are not without direction. They do have an internal direction finder that is always working, but not in the same way as a defined G center. Undefined G centers will be directed here or taken there and can be conditioned to go most anywhere by others. It's part of their path. This sampling of directions is the way they determine which way is correct for them. They also collect places that are right for them that they can return to, such as the right places to eat, shop, work, and play. The mantra for the undefined G center is if you are in the wrong place, you're with the wrong people or person. The undefined G is specifically equipped to sense when the environment that they're in isn't correct for them. If someone takes them to a restaurant, home, store, or office that doesn't feel right, they'll automatically transfer that feeling of unease to the person who took them there, to the people they meet there, or to proposals of commitments suggested while there. As an example, you might take a woman with an open, undefined G to a restaurant in order to introduce her to a potential business partner. But if the restaurant is the wrong place for her, the connection can't work. Try changing restaurants. When you find the one that is right for her, then the viability of the connection can be accurately assessed. This is how undefined G centers discover others on their trajectory. It's all about place. When those with an undefined G are in the right place, the direction of their life is correct, and the people they meet will be correct. They will thrive as their undefined center amplifies and reflects the correct energy of people around them, as if where they are is what they are. In other words, the wrong house, job, or relationship can be the cause of great unhappiness. The beauty of having this center open is that people around the open G often become their willing allies, full of suggestions and eager to help. New directions and new loves are brought to them all the time. Friends show them where everything is and take them to the correct people, places, and jobs. The undefined G center's not self question is, am I still trying to find direction and love? When aligning with their vehicles, they do not have to find anything themselves. In fact, they cannot find it for themselves. It doesn't work that way for them. Let's say you need a new place to live. You would begin by calling your friends and realtors with a description of exactly what you're looking for. Then you sit back and wait to see what they show you. By visiting each place that they found for you, you'll get a sense of which one is correct for you. Once you find that place, you do not owe the people anything other than their fee and an expression of gratitude for showing it to you. They were merely being of service to you, which is their proper role in your life. The same strategy applies to love. The moment you stop chasing after love, it comes to you. Understanding and accepting that you're designed to wait for others to initiate you to your direction and place can be profoundly liberating. People with an undefined G center need their independence and need to have people around them who support their freedom to explore the expansiveness of their lives. If they find themselves in a relationship that's not correct, they'll feel trapped and begin looking for a way out. Making sure that a child with an undefined G center feels comfortable in their bedroom or special playroom can mean the difference between simply existing and thriving in their formative years. If there's anything about a place that's uncomfortable or unpleasant, change it whenever possible. The same applies to school. If a school does not feel like a good place, the child will not thrive or learn. Even moving the student to a different seat can make a difference, right? Um, because open centers amplify what you're feeling. So I have an open root center, so I will be around people with a a defined root center, and I would get panic attacks because all that extra energy was amplified in my direction, and so I would have crippling anxiety because it's too much energy. My body can't handle that. But I could have moved if I had known. I could have moved seats in the classroom, you know. Uh, and so can the child with an open G center or any of these centers. If you have any of them that and they're open, you know you're getting amplified rushes of energy from other people who have closed or defined centers. So if you start to become consciously aware of how your body feels, different impulses and signals your body sends you, and you can. The first thought would be, "Hey, let me move around. I'm near somebody, and that's where all this extra energy is coming from. It's stressing me out. I can't go on. I need relief. So move around, move seats, and you know, hey, you could whatever it is. That's definitely the solution. Paying attention. Um, a powerful and congent motivation underlying the thinking of undefined G's is which direction will take me to love? Almost every decision that the mind makes through its dialogue with the not self is filtered by this question. Is this where I'll find love? The not self can be obsessed with where they're headed and when they're going to find love. It prods them to search for identity by trying to understand who they are. They can become preoccupied with earning titles and adding letters behind their name so that they can say, I'm a doctor or professor or lawyer. They initiate over and over again only to meet resistance. Not knowing who they are leads them to believe something is wrong with them, and this sends them searching for the elusive self. Life without a fixed sense of direction can feel disorienting, and place seems to be a mystery because it's not about what our mind thinks that it is. When people with an undefined G try to understand themselves with their minds, they miss both love and correct direction. Strategy and authority are always the solution for this. When at peace with themselves, undefined Gs do not need to anticipate their next move or when love will come again. They're comfortable waiting for something or someone in the environment to initiate them. They realize that it's not up to them and trust that they'll be shown the way. They do not become attached to the people who take them to the correct place or love. They simply thank them and move on. This frees them to be comfortable with all types of people and discerning about who is living life authentically. Instead of feeling lost, people with undefined G centers can enjoy what's being shown to them. They can enjoy the people and places they encounter and are free to take advantage of the guidance given by others. They can tell us what love and direction are because they can take in all the possibilities of love and experience all the different directions. Though they can never see their destination, they know which step will be revealed if they live as themselves. They know each next step will be revealed if they live as themselves. Ultimately, there's no better guides in life than those with undefined G centers. By letting go of their need for identity and love, they can step into anyone's shoes and offer loving, correct guidance. They are here to become wise about the ways identity is expressed through a person's behavior. Many great actors of stage and screen have undefined Gs with no strong fixed identity of their own. By taking the role or identity, they're able to act deeply into themselves. They can reflect it back as a convincing and compelling portrayal of that character. Wow. So if you got an open G center, you could be a great actor or actress. See there? That's what's up. A completely open G center leaves one without clear, identifiable personality parameters and an inherent sense of direction. If not grounded in their personal authority, completely open Gs feel afloat and unsure of themselves, turning to others to identify and direct them, and to affirm their lovability. This leaves them vulnerable to manipulation and open to the conditioning dictates of others. Once they give their authority over to another person, authority figure, or institution, they can no longer live out their true potential. Over time, as they become comfortable with the openness of their design, they do discover their way of direction and a sense of their unique being. Like those with undefined Gs, their broad experience and comprehension of the nature of being, self love, and the way we're designed to move through life is wisdom we can all benefit from, not self talk of the undefined G center. The not self mind is the spokesperson for the undefined centers and tells us what we should say or do. Noticing this talk is essential to deconditioning. Here's some examples of what the not self mental monologue could sound like with an undefined G center. Who am I? Where should I go to find out who I am? Who can show me? Who am I going to love? Who's going to love me? How do I find them? Where can I find them? What am I going to do with my life? Where should I go to figure out what to do with my life? Is it there? Is it here? Where is it? Do I feel lost? Let's go here because we might find something that will show me who I am or what to do with my life. Let's have a relationship with this person because I'll get a sense of who I am. The moment that you live according to your strategy and authority, you're aligning your life for the first time to what is your true movement and direction. Your true movement and direction. This is the beginning of the process. The alignment, as you move, begins to open up all kinds of new horizons. The first thing it does is eliminate resistance. At the simplest level, by being able to make decisions as yourself, you immediately begin to remove certain fundamental burdens from the life. You begin to see that you can trust a decision making process within you. You begin to be comfortable with your own authority, something that human beings have been robbed of from the time that they came into the world. We're dominated by the authorities of others. And you can see in this struggle that if you depend on your mind to help you, it's going to be overwhelmed by the openness. That was a quote from Ra Uru Hu, founder of the Human Design System. We'll stop here, and when we come back, we'll get back to section 3, where we start to discuss the authority. What does it mean, strategy and authority? We'll discuss what that means and how to live our own unique, authentic truth. Wow, a lot was said today, right? Um, I love it personally. It's inspiring, you know, it's informative, it's full of tools that I can use to experiment with to see if it makes life easier for me instead of experiencing as many upsets as I've experienced in my life or you've experienced in your life. Maybe you too can look into this, pull your chart, um, and consider ways to carry out your experiment to see if this indeed is true, if it really is um, factual in so many ways. Ra Uru is an interesting person, is he not? This is interesting. Um, I want to give a shout out to Komet. You know, like I said, if it wasn't for Komet, we wouldn't have this information. Yeah. So the ancient Cometian Empire, a worldwide empire, some were in India and Angkor Wat, some were in obviously where the Hindus and the Brahmins were at. They created this chakra system. We know that because when we go to Kemet, we start reading about Kemet. We're reading about chakra systems. I mean, you have the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the Egyptian Book of the Dead. It makes complete sense to me that he would name himself Ra, because each of these different aspects of this system all come from Egyptians. Um, uh, uh, Basically, these kingdoms have been given different names instead of obviously something that was a universal term for this worldwide empire. I mean, you can tell through reading and learning about the different cultures, even of the American Indians. Like we said, the Indians, the Hindus, the Zoroastrians, the Kabbalah. The Kabbalah is based off the tarot, and that comes from Egypt or from Kemet. So I want to just shout out Kemet, um, and just go ahead and put it on the record. I acknowledge this information comes from Kemet, and I'm thankful to have it because now we can really get down to the nitty gritty of understanding energy, and it's really personal. We can start with the energy within ourselves, you know? And we started that path when we started to get into astrology years ago. We knew then that hey, this is helpful information for me to learn myself, learn all the different energies that are affecting me from all these different planets and things of that nature. So I think we're going in the right direction, I think we're moving into higher vibrations, becoming more consciously aware of how this energy impacts the universe, impacts us here on Earth and all things, animals, reptiles, plants, trees, they all have these auras. They all have these different centers in their bodies. They have 8. We have 9 as humans. Um, all this, of course, according to what Ra Uru Hu says, that a voice told him. Interesting. I want to know, in furthering my research on this topic, I want to confirm in somehow, some way, um, through Kemetic writings, that these things are what was being taught in various mystery schools. Something, the Mayans. Olmecs, um, like we said, the Indians and Nagas in India, all these different places, the ancient indigenous Europeans, all these different places, ancient Chinese, right? Indigenous, because we already, I don't know what your research has shown you yet, or if you research those things. I'm into researching history and the historical timeline, migrations, linguistics, geology, archaeology. I'm just, I like to soak up knowledge. And so for me, I can say with my full chest that this is ancient Cometian science, ancient Moorish science, if you will. So thank you for joining me today. Like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment letting me know out of these different centers, did you pull your body graph chart? Have you noted whether or not all these different centers are defined or open? Were you helped by this information today? And join us in the CGH chat room, the Openly Occultic Book Club chat room. Um, and there we can discuss even more in depth around other people who are also reading along, also learning about the human design, beginners and long-time subscribers to this human design system are all welcome at the Openly Occultic Book Club on the CGH chat room so we can talk about human design, right? I love it. Thank you so much. Hope you have a great day. Wholeness and balance.